Hello and welcome to the Lightning Rod Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Loftus. The Lightning Rod is sponsored by EnviroSpark Energy Solutions. Welcome one and all to the very first episode of the Lightning Rod Podcast. I'm Kevin Loftus, and I'm very excited to get this out into the internet and have some great conversations. This podcast is centered and focused around the electric vehicle industry, so all things involving the vehicles themselves as well as charging stations, which brings me to our sponsor, EnviroSpark Energy Solutions, who is a provider of these electric vehicle charging stations based in Atlanta and leading the charge throughout the country. So it's really an honor and privilege to announce that on this first episode, our inaugural episode, I got a chance to sit down with EnviroSparks Founder and CEO, Luque, and we had a great conversation, about an hour long, give or take. And so it's going to be split up into two parts. So please, without further ado, let me introduce EnviroSparks Founder and CEO, Luque. Hello and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Lightning Rod Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Loftus, and I'm joined today by EnviroSparks' very own CEO and founder, Luque. Aaron, thanks for being here, man.
Hey, glad to be here.
It's exciting.
Yeah,
Big
man.
stuff.
Let's do it.
Kicking it off with a bang, ladies and gentlemen. The biggest sponsor of the podcast, EnviroSpark, and the founder's right here. So, Aaron, man, I'm just excited that we had the chance to get together and chat a bit about EnviroSpark and, you know, find out more about the early days, the beginnings, and, you know, plans for the future. And so my first question for you is, how did EnviroSpark get started back in 2014?
Oh, man. It's a pretty cool story, actually. Just to back up a little bit before that, because I think there's a little bit of context that might be worth sharing. So
Reel it all the way back.
I always had a passion for sustainability, and I think it's one of the reasons, you know, very shortly after college, I started my first business, which was actually a recycling company.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And you know, I had been kind of building and growing that business for several years, and you know, after around the 8th year, the timing, it was really interesting because I had just married my wife and my best friend from college, from Georgia Tech, and you know, was also ready to get out of the day-to-day of that first company. And so we're looking at, you know, potential ventures, right? And so, you know, my wife, she's being recruited by all these companies. I said, why don't we do something together? Like, I want to start a new company. Why don't we do it together? And so we just happened to be on our honeymoon as well around this time. So we ended up writing the business plan for EnviroSpark while we were on our honeymoon.
No way. That's incredible.
Yeah. As all couples do, right?
Mm-hmm.
I suppose. So
we certainly do.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was so fun about that was we got an opportunity to do something that was very similar to kind of our experience in college. I mean, we always would do group projects together, and we always had so much fun, and we could be so creative together, and you know, we're a really good complement for each other. And so we workshopped all these different ideas. I mean, I was looking more at things like solar and energy storage and LED retrofitting, and a little embarrassed to say, I actually hadn't even heard of Elon Musk at this time. And you know, my wife says, man, you know, look at this company Tesla, look at this guy Elon, like this looks pretty cool. Like, maybe we should do something with electric cars. And so the more we looked into it, the more it got very intriguing and compelling, just that whole space. And then we started thinking to ourselves, man, this could be the future of transportation. And what an opportunity that might be for us to play some meaningful role in helping bring on this future. And this business opportunity that comes along with that.
Sure.
And so we kind of founded the company with two main missions in mind. I mean, it was basically we wanted to promote awareness for all the benefits that come along with electrification. I think there's something for everyone, whether it's it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, doesn't matter how you feel about climate change. There are just a lot of very interesting and very compelling reasons why electrification is a good thing. And so we founded the company, and two main missions. Mission one is let's raise awareness for all these benefits. Mission two, which is kind of where the business case is, was let's build a business around deploying charging infrastructure. Because we found that even if people knew all the benefits, or they were excited about electric cars or interested in getting one, the main barrier was just feeling like they wouldn't have access to charging, like they're going to get stuck somewhere, and there just wasn't enough infrastructure to get people comfortable with making that switch yet. And so we said, well, let's dedicate the company to that mission, and that hasn't changed now in nearly 10 years. And it's really exciting to now be able to look back and just see, all of this adoption. I mean, when we got into it, it was less than 1% of all vehicles being bought were electric. Now we're over 8%, and in relatively a very short span of time. And to be able to look back and say, we helped make all this possible. I mean, I think we're up to something like 7,500 plus installations across the country, and this feeling that every time somebody sees one of our stations, they're a little bit more inclined to consider getting an electric car.
Man, absolutely. Wow. First of all, talk about a power couple, or the dream team, if you will. Like, that's a match made in heaven. But
I'll say
you were already in, the renewable space, so to speak, and to have lightning strike when you weren't even remotely aware of, like you said, Elon Musk at the time, and then to fall right into this at quite frankly the perfect timing. As this industry begins to grow and evolve, it just seems like you were in the right place, right time. Turns out, folks, you heard it here first. Make all your business plans and ventures on your honeymoon.
There you go.
It works out pretty well.
Well, it's funny. I mean, there are some people who will come up and say, "Oh man, I don't know how you do it. I could never work with my wife or whatever." I'm like, man, I love it, man. Actually, there's no part of my life I wouldn't want to share.
That's awesome.
With her. So, and she's a fantastic just compliment for me, because she's one of those people who, I mean, she comes up with these fantastic ideas, but sometimes it's like you want to get just everything perfect before you actually go and execute. And so for me, I'm one of those people who, like, I'm willing to just figure some of that out as we go. And so it's kind of this nice temper. And
That's incredible. Now, you mentioned that you and your wife Stephanie were able to partner together in school. Where did you guys go to school?
Yeah, so we went to Georgia Tech, and we just had a number of classes together, and so in the same semester. And so we would just always partner up and work on stuff, and we had so much fun doing all that stuff together. And that experience, I mean, this is kind of like a great, almost an extension of that, being able to work together on something really exciting and actually make a difference in the world while doing it, right? I mean, we want to leave the world better than when we got here, and we don't believe that has to be mutually exclusive with having fun. And you can make a few bucks while you're doing it too.
Even better.
So yeah, I mean, it's really neat.
That's excellent. That's excellent. How would you say that education at Georgia Tech? Did you already have a passion before that for sustainability and clean energy, or did you kind of fall into that and find yourself, so to speak, throughout your experience at Tech?
Well, I mean, it was a part of it was I mean, just it was a continuation at Georgia Tech. I mean, even before that, I was very into it, just in the sense of I was always very into like science fiction and physics and biology, and just trying to understand the way the universe works, and being angry that you can see space and the sky and all these beautiful stars, and knowing that I'll never be able to go there. Like, I don't know.
I'll never say never.
All these existential questions, right. but man, like, if I could help future generate. It's kind of like being a parent, right? You're a parent, and so you want to help your kids do things that maybe you never got to do as a kid, but it would be super cool that you wish you could have done. And so, if we can be a strong link in that chain, of humanity, and help, do things to make things better for future generations and get them to the point where maybe one of them can go, so, it's I think there's, we find a lot of meaning in that. So I think it's pretty cool. So the other thing that I will say is I watched, I was a big fan of Carl Sagan.
Yeah, sure.
And I enjoyed things like the Cosmos series, and there was something that he talked about, it was like the pale blue dot. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It was a speech that he gave, and
also a space nerd here too.
Yeah, so. And so that is just, I mean, yeah, if anybody hasn't seen it, I mean, I would, it's a 30-second or 1 minute watch, right? Like, you can look it up on YouTube, but it's just the speech, and it was basically Voyager. I think it was Voyager 1. It was Voyager 1, Voyager 2, one of those two. Like, right before it left the solar system, they pointed the lens back and they took a picture of Earth, and it was just this, tiny little dot, and it just kind of really highlighted, how small Earth is in the grand scheme of things, and like, this is home for us, and it's the only home that we have, and we should take care of it. And so I don't know. It always kind of spoke to me.
I mean, that's a great driving factor and force to have behind the wheel, so to speak, to propel you into something like this. And, speaking of this industry, EnviroSparks coming up on the 10-year mark, right? Started back in 2014, crazy, full decade. How about that? And, in the past year alone, the company's seen an immense amount of growth. What would you personally attribute that growth, especially rapidly this past year to?
Oof. I mean, it's a lot of different things. There's so many. I mean, we're kind of in this perfect storm of opportunity right now, and so everything we've been doing, we feel like we've been kind of playing a role in helping prepare, this opportunity that's here. But also, just there are other, outside factors that are really just all coming together right now that are creating this incredible opportunity for somebody like us who's been preparing and dutifully playing our role in making this come about. But when you think about it, you have, the federal government is putting billions of dollars into electrification. So, that's creating a lot of opportunity. And what's interesting about that is a lot of it, there's this Buy America component too. So it's also bringing a lot of manufacturing and job creation and things like that here to the States, which is kind of cool. So there's investment on that side, and then also on the infrastructure side, which is what we do. They're looking at not only helping electrify basically the national highway system, which is pretty cool through the NEVI program, but then you also have them electrifying their own fleets, and so being able to be involved in those programs has just been an incredible opportunity, and has been super rewarding for us so far to be able to serve in that capacity, because we're one of the few companies that has that level of experience to be able to be involved now.
Well, that's true. I was going to ask you, what makes EnviroSpark stand out to be a good candidate to take on some of those jobs?
Well, it's a great question. So we feel like when we read what the government's plans were, and we read the guidance for the opportunity. So there was this $500 million bid to electrify the federal buildings in the Southeast. We felt like it was handmade for us, and so it was the experience that we already had leading up to that point, playing a very similar role for major OEMs, like Tesla and Volkswagen, their Electrify America program, Tesla's destination and supercharging programs, helping build these national networks. And then working with a lot of the major utilities. We owe so much to Tesla and to Georgia Power. Like, those were two of our first major partners. And for us as a small startup, trying to get integrated with them, we felt we could be nimble. And so it's like, these guys are trying to make big moves. Where can we support that? And so we got involved building these huge networks, or supporting these big programs that were designed to promote electrification. And so we got a lot of experience in learning the ropes on how to deploy this infrastructure at a at both small, medium, and large scale. So everything down to your one individual site, down to maybe a statewide program, then up to maybe a regional rollout for somebody like Tesla or Volkswagen, or Volta, now Shell, and then eventually a national scale program, which those guys we eventually scaled to national levels. So
sure. Yeah, that's not light work. That's not light work, but it seems like the business strategy and platform that EnviroSpark has created this amazing opportunity that otherwise hasn't been there from some of y'all's competitors. And it sounds like just having that in-house team and ability to launch and deploy and install these charging stations has really helped strengthen some of those partnerships, like with Tesla and Racetrack and whatever else.
Well, that's what we found, was that like there were a lot of companies that had kind of big ambitions around electrification and infrastructure, but they needed someone to help with the actual like physical side of making all of that come together, which is like the design work, pulling your permits, constructing and maintaining the equipment. I mean, that's that requires a certain level of specialization. Sure. And so that was always something that was important to me, was just to understand the technical side of all of this, right? Like we wanted to play a role in helping electric transportation accelerate and take off and take over as the predominant form of transportation. And we felt one of the best ways that we would be best served to do that would be to learn the technical side. And so I just remember very early on when we started the company, it was like we wanted to start with just residential installs. So I would go to the local Tesla showroom, and we would just, I would beg them, like, if somebody buys a Tesla, can I go to their house and put the charger in? So self-taught, master electrician, general contractor. But the reason I would do that, the reason I would go and ask for that opportunity, is because I just wanted to know what it took to install this infrastructure. And so they didn't say yes right away. They're like, who is this guy that just kind of keeps coming in here? And it was actually Stephanie's idea. This is why she's so fantastic. I was like, I don't know, maybe I should like invite them to lunch or like bring them through there. Like, I don't know, what do I, like I'm going in and getting to know them. But I was like, maybe there's something I can do to, quote unquote, sweeten the deal.
Yeah, of course.
And she said, she calls it donut diplomacy, but she said you should bring coffee and donuts.
Patent pending, copyright. Yep.
Coffee, it's the title of my new book.
That's great.
It'll be available in fine bookstores everywhere.
We'll link it down below in the description.
I would start, once a month I'd go by, I'd bring coffee and donuts and just get to know the people selling Teslas there, and eventually getting right in front of the right person who says, we'll give you an opportunity to do an install. And it kind of grew from there. It grew from, doing some residential work to then doing commercial work, on a local scale, and then doing it on a more regional scale, and then ultimately doing it, at a national scale. And so we wanted to help in whatever capacity we could for those types of groups. And I think what was so cool about working with somebody like Tesla is just our interests were so aligned. It's like if they had the choice to work with an electrician who does a lot of different types of electrical work and does EV charging installs as a side hustle, or they can work with somebody who is like laser focused on just doing EV work, and the success of my business is totally related to the success of Tesla and electric vehicles and everything else. They see us as I don't want to speak for them, but I would think intuitively that you might be perceived as a more valued partner because of your ability to speak intelligently with individuals that have just got their Tesla, or sites that are considering having Tesla stations put on them. We eat, live, and breathe EVs. And so that was really exciting and rewarding to get to be a part of all that network and infrastructure building that is now like the backbone of electric vehicle travel in the country.
I don't know if the viewers can tell or not, but you seem really passionate about this, truly at the core.
I mean, a little bit, yeah.
Just
I mean,
a tiny
you know,
bit.
not, yeah.
It's like a scope.
It's all right, but no. In all seriousness, that I mean, yeah, it was. It's something I loved. So that I think you have to be passionate about what you do. Like, if you want to have, I mean, I'm speaking anecdotally for myself, but I just feel like in terms of like the quality of your life, if you love what you do for work, that's so much of your day. That's so much, or your week. You know, so much of your life is spent working. And so if you love what you do and you feel like you're doing something important or something meaningful, then it's incredibly rewarding. Whereas, you know, if you're doing something that you just can't wait to, like, you know, get off work.
Punch out.
It's like
we only have so much time. Why would you waste it?
Yeah, and it'd be hard not to take that into the rest of your life. Like, you can't have just the worst day ever and then go home and like, I mean, maybe you're feeling good that you're not at work anymore, but like, you still just, I think your overall day, like the quality of your day, is not going to be good. And so, back to your question on just the, you know, what do we credit, you know, a lot of our success to? I think, you know, a lot of it has been, you know, the people that we have on our team. So we have this opportunity. We're talking about, you know, all the federal funding that's out there. You know, there's these utilities that have aligned interests that are supporting us. There's these OEMs, you know, like Tesla, that we partner with, and everybody is aligned. You know, we all have a kind of a shared goal of what we're trying to achieve. And then in terms of our individual success as a company, we have been so intentional about, you know, the people that we have brought into, you know, I mean, we see it as a family. I mean, it sounds cheesy. I guess every company, you know, says that, but like, I mean, it's really important to me that we live that. And so, like, one thing that we do when we are considering bringing somebody onto the team is we're always looking for, you know, that passion for sustainability and that desire to be a part of something bigger than themselves, and, you know, that alignment with our mission as an organization. You know, if I'm looking at two resumes and they're pretty equal, or maybe even one's better than the other one, if, you know, in the interview process you're talking to somebody who is just so passionate on what we're trying to do, they get it, they understand it, and they want to be a part of it. Like I can't ask for
no.
It's one of the best things about working here, I think, is that we all have that drive and that desire to do something, you know, meaningful in the world, right? Like, I mean, it sounds so cheesy, right?
No,
like,
absolutely.
I'm making the world a better place. Like, everybody says that, but like,
everybody truly believes
but we believe it, man. And like, I would never want somebody, you know, who was here, like, to just view this as just kind of a paycheck, or, you know, they're just, you know, punching the clock. It's like, I would want to help them find something that they love. Like, that's how much I care about, like, the people that are helping make this vision a reality, like, and have played some part in that. Like, if they weren't aligned with our mission, or they weren't bought into what we're trying to do, like, I would encourage them to go find something that they truly love doing. Because, again, for the previously stated reasons, right? I feel somewhat responsible for, you know, I don't know, it's the quality, like, the quality of life of the employees that are working here. It's like, I want this to be, I mean, it's one of the reasons, like, we're sitting in this super cool studio in this cool office. Like, it was always a dream of ours to combine our warehouse with our administrative facilities and things like that.
What resonates when you walk in here? You feel it amongst everybody just walking by, passing smiles, something like that.
Well, it's like our technical teams, the guys who do this amazing work, the guys that make the magic happen, the guys that run the conduit and install the breakers and wire up the transformers. Like, they were just going to a dusty warehouse, you know, to pick up equipment, and then off to the job site, and they weren't you know, getting to see everybody and engage with the company and everyone else as much as I would have liked. And so, you know, like just true to wanting to make this, like, feel like a family environment here, it was like, I wanted to combine that so that they'd have to come in and hang out with,
I mean, what other companies do you have
else,
your
right?
sales reps commingling with your construction team?
It's
you just don't see
fun.
that. It's great.
It's always fun too when we go to interview somebody from, maybe like another electrical house or another contracting company, and then they kind of come here and just see the vibe and the setup. And I don't think it's ever what anybody expects if they haven't been here before.
I'll tell you, viewers, listeners, if you haven't gotten a peek at EnviroSpark HQ, as soon as you walk in the door, you're like, yeah, this is what a charging company should look like, and feel like when you walk in. And if you haven't seen it, I would recommend going to EnviroSpark's Instagram. There's a great reel on there that gives you, the whole tour, the whole virtual tour. I'd check that out.
Link below.
Link
right?
below.
There
Link in
you
the
go.
bio
There
down
you go.
below.
Yeah.
We've noticed that, a lot of singular locations have started installing charging stations, but not many gas stations. If I'm not mistaken, EnviroSpark just helped Racetrack, a big southern gas station company, install their first official Racetrack branded EV charging bay and station there. And so why do you think they waited to, undergo such a needed and tremendous process?
Yeah. So and they're not the only ones. I mean, so there's a lot of the gas station, convenience store, refueling operations. They're now kind of starting to get into the game a little bit. Yeah, would I have liked to have seen that sooner? Yes. I mean, they were some of the first people we tried to approach on that front. I will say it's each one of those companies operates a little bit differently, right? Like, sure. but some of them, the way they're thinking about it is they are trying to get people to come get fuel so that then they come into the store and they buy a few extra things with better margin than the gas.
That's
and,
right. Yeah.
And then there are some groups that literally they're kind of laser focused on they want to make money on the fuel. Yes, they want to make money at the convenience stores, but they treat those as two different things.
Entities. Yeah, of course.
Whereas some say we're looking at this on the whole, and so we're trying to just in aggregate, as long as we're getting enough revenue, enough business, we're good. And so when you're talking less than 1% of new cars being bought are electric, not to mention all the cars that are already on the road are not electric. I could see how it wouldn't be super motivating to spend $1 million, or plus on outfitting a convenience store.
It's valid. Yeah.
Although some were a little bit earlier to the game. I mean, I have to say, and we built some of these sites, Wawa has been doing this for a while. I don't know if you're familiar with them or not,
Wawa.
but they had a so they were doing a number of sites with Tesla. And and I've had a Tesla for a while, and I'm on the road, as you can imagine, a lot. And those Wawas, I mean, they were always getting so much business. Whenever I go to refuel at one of them, most of the stalls were full, and everybody's going inside and getting set. And so it was definitely a benefit for them. But they were more of the exception than the rule, I think. For of the 10 years we've been doing it, I mean, I'd say during most of those years, very few C stores were seriously considering this. And so, the challenge is that it is a very high cost to install that level of infrastructure that would enable high-speed charging, which is what people would want from a convenience store, sure. Right? They're typically on interstates, or they're people, who are looking to charge, while on a road trip or something like that. And so that infrastructure is not inexpensive. So you either would need a partner, somebody like Tesla or Electrify America, or somebody, who is willing to foot the bill because they have, some other reason, that they would want to do that. Tesla, they want to sell cars, of course, and they want people comfortable buying Teslas, so they're willing to take that on. Or somebody like Volkswagen, who had to, because they got busted cheating the emissions system, and so their punishment was to spend $20 billion or whatever on infrastructure. And so
clearly helped their case now going forward. I've seen some of those V-dubs on the road already, and they look great. So
yeah, oh yeah,
good for them.
Sure. And so I'll say the one that nowadays there is more availability to funding, whether it's through utility programs, through the NEVI program, and two, there's more people on the road with EVs where you could actually make a business case either for your stores or for your refueling, where it might actually be a good business opportunity. And so we are seeing a lot more of that, and it's really exciting to get to be a part of that, because we're serving a lot of these big groups that have plans to do this, and we're leveraging our experience having done it as much as we have for as long as we have to help them do this, and quickly kind of get back in the game. The biggest challenge for someone like that is just they are now competing with outlet malls and restaurants, and essentially anyone with a parking lot and access to power can be a competitor. And then on top of that, something like 80% of all charging is done at home right now. So
yeah, that's huge. I think maybe a lot of folks don't realize that. And so we've talked a little bit about driving long distances, travel, getting charged up. Seems like there's a great plan in place to strengthen that. But that was a perfect segue into my next question for you. What would you consider EnviroSpark's bread and butter client?
Well, the anybody with a parking lot and access to power,
work and play, baby.
But no, I mean, yeah, that's where I think maybe there have been some misconceptions or misapprehensions just around what needs to be done to get ready for this wave of electric cars. Like, there's and it's an intuitive thought to think, oh man, we just need to, like, every gas station, we just need to rebuild the refueling network in the country, and all the gas stations just need to have electric vehicle chargers. And there's some need for that,
sure,
but because most people can just wake up with a full tank whenever they want at home, that eliminates the need to have to go to that convenience store, or go somewhere that you otherwise wouldn't go in the normal course of your day to refuel. And I can say, as an EV owner, I mean, there's nothing better than just waking up with a full tank every morning.
Not having to worry about it.
Yeah. Not to mention no oil changes, no brake changes, and all the other cool bells and whistles that come with the EV technology. So, but yeah, like the waking up, with like ready to go and being able to drive throughout the entire day and come home, and never having to stop for fuel is pretty cool. And so that's what I always thought was interesting is, how much of your time driving is actually like on a road trip or something, And so there's so much focus on that side of refueling, right? I mean, the federal government billions into helping the national networks, the interstate networks and things like that get EV charging, which again I think is needed, but it's also just a very small percentage of where charging is going to be taking place. And so going back to your question about who is, I mean, in terms of bread and butter, like I said, I mean, we serve anybody that wants to do an electric vehicle project. Like, we will help them figure out how to do it. But the type of client that's near and dear to my heart, like just that we feel really aligns with our mission and has been somewhat undervalued and overlooked, is the multifamily market. It's 30% of Americans live in some sort of multifamily environment, whether it's a condo or an apartment, some mixed use development, something like that. And so for them, having access to charging could make the difference between somebody getting an EV and not getting an EV. There are some people who may say, well, I don't want to have to go sit at the mall for 25 minutes once a week or every other week or whatever, like that's not appealing to me. But this idea of having, them saying, oh, I can wake up with a full tank whenever I want at my apartment or my condo.
What creature comfort could be better than that?
That is actually, I would argue, is probably more compelling than having a robust.
I've certainly heard stories about what does it cost, about $100 on average to pre-order some kind of electric vehicle. And, I've heard the stories of folks just sitting on it because they don't have that immediate. They're waiting. Maybe they communicate that wherever they live, or maybe they don't. But I think there is some tremendous opportunity there. And clearly, you guys have seen that and been able to not only capitalize on it, but just help get the awareness out there.
I mean, when you talk about bang for your buck, like if we go back to the example where it could cost, $1 million to put in, some fast chargers at a C-store, convenience store, gas station along the highway, or outlet mall, whatever. like that's the average cost of an installation like that. I mean, let's on the high side, let's say a overnight charger, for the sake of round numbers. I mean, it's probably less than this, but let's just make it 10,000. For for 10 of those, maybe 100,000. Something like. I mean, it's like you could get so many more stations installed in so many more places with the same amount of money if you put it into overnight charging for level 2 applications where people live in the multi. But there's just not a lot of funding for that, right? Like the federal government's not really doing much there. Some utility, I mean, I can't speak on behalf of all utilities. Some utility programs are better than others with this, but some say it has to be public charging in order for you to get subsidies from the utilities. State programs, there's all different things, but there's just this focus on the public charging aspect, which is so little of all overall charging, but that's where most of the funding is going. So that's where I think like maybe hopefully people will start thinking about things a little bit differently there. But for me, it's like to install, if I install 2 stations at an apartment with 1,000 residents or 2,000 residents, again, high side, let's say it costs $20,000 or whatever. Maybe usually it's a lot less than that, right? But right. Let's just say on the high side, for $20,000, I can open up the possibility of EV ownership to 1,000 people. Just by doing that, to where they would be very.
Oh, they're going to call you within a week and say
if they are interested in getting an electric car, they will now pull the trigger, because for a very small amount of investment versus if I put in $1 million worth of fast chargers 20 minutes away, that may not be as compelling to them. And again, I think you need both. But it's this ecosystem that I think people are still having to figure out. The other benefit that comes along with that type of charging, whether it's if you have a single family home, you can get a charging station at your house. That's usually very inexpensive to do. A couple $1,000 tops, maybe. If that, maybe $100,000 if you do it right. So I mean, it just depends on the electrical nature and the setup and everything. And so that's most charging is going to be done in that way. And then now if we can open that up to everybody in the multifamily space, you really only need that fast charging capability for the road trips and the travel and so I think it's a challenge for those types of companies. I mean, going back to the original question, I think it's a challenge for them to find that business case where it makes sense.
That makes good sense to me.
On the flip side, every time someone gets an electric car, if they don't have a charger, they've lost that person forever. Unless somebody goes, oh, I just want to stop and get some Twizzlers or whatever. Which, how often do you just see a gas station and go, oh, I'm going to stop and get, And so usually it's a byproduct of refueling there, and so that's kind of this difficult space that those guys have to play.
It's a fine line to walk based on years of traditional business model on their end. So
yeah, well, and that's what I'm saying. Whatever you're used to seeing in terms of total market or opportunity, cut that by 80%, and now you have to compete there. And so you want to use, as much subsidy as you can. You want to be super strategic in your placement and decision making around which locations are you going to put these and things like that. It's funny to look at the disbursement of, because we have access to a lot of data around charging, and to look at the disbursement and certain sites that do really well and certain ones that, and sometimes it's counterintuitive. There are sites you would think would do really well or get a lot of use, and and then there are sites that you're like, I cannot believe how much this one is getting. It'd be like maybe like a kind of a lower end hotel getting like just crazy usage. You're like, what is up with that? And you look at it, and it's like the closest fast charger to the airport, and all the rideshare drivers are using that station because it's closest to the airport, and they're doing that while they're waiting to take somebody from the airport. And so you have to start considering all these different factors in that. And so that's where it's just it's going to be very tough, because now they're competing with the hotel by the airport or the outlet mall or the restaurant. So
that's incredible. Hey, thanks so much for checking out part 1 of my conversation with Aaron Luque, CEO and founder of EnviroSpark Energy Solutions. can't wait for you to hear the rest of the conversation on part 2, which should drop in about 1 week. So check back here, click that little notification bell so you don't miss it. See you on the next one.